Welcome to the channel, everybody. If this is your first time here, then you started in the right place. This is episode 1, where Rachel and I give all of our background. We talk about a carrot salad, and then we give some client wins and plugs at the end. Welcome and hope you enjoy. Before we get started, make sure like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell. We're going to be coming out with tons of new series, new videos, plenty of content that you guys might find as a special niche you can't find anywhere else but right here on the channel. So I wanted to kind of toss it over to you, Rachel, here first, so you could introduce yourself, give the listeners a kind of insight into where you're coming from, your own personal experiences, and what kind of brought you to want to talk with me about this in the first place. We both have some specialty, some special education when it comes to this stuff, but we've both had a big mental paradigm shift when it comes to the fitness world. So where did this all start for you? Where did you come from? And is Virginia your hometown where you grew up?
Yes, so I was born and raised right here in Roanoke, Virginia. I'm actually about 10 minutes away from my original house here. So always been kind of home base. I have moved away a couple times, but found myself back here. Um, to give a little synopsis of where I come from, I've always been one of those fitness junkies. I think when I was about, you know, 8 or 9 years old, I was pulling up the Jillian Michaels videos, putting them on the TV,
Wow,
like with my little 5 pound dumbbells and
throwback.
trying to walk or run like as many miles as possible a day. On yeah, on top of sports, I did the cheerleading thing, I did the softball thing, I did track cross
Mm,
country. I just always kind of was like, yep, the physical fitness aspect is my thing. However, on top of the exercising addiction, because I am going to call it an addiction now, I was also dealing with improper nutrition for most of my
interesting.
life. I was always calorie counting. I would try to make sure I had one of those Fitbits when they first came out, and I would try to make sure I burnt like 3 times the amount of calories I consumed. So I
Interesting. So
would be
so even
like,
as a child
okay,
growing
I'll
up,
eat this 200 calorie granola bar.
sorry, there might be a little bit of a delay. So even as growing up, this is even new to me. It wasn't a focus on the health aspect or being on teams, being fit. It was I just want to have as much output and be as fit as possible physically. Wow.
Yeah, and it was for me, it was less to do with the skinny look. Like I really admired the like muscular toned fit look more than just this. So it was a very complicated like anorexia type thing
Yeah.
where, I thought I had to work to be able to eat.
Mm. A
Um,
lot of women, I think, are drawn to
now
that
how that
Jillian Michaels look, just like you're talking about, and they have no idea. How did that translate into what you wanted to do in high school and college? Did you continue that same type of intense tracking and obsessive eating?
I did, but I masked it by putting myself in the bodybuilding realm. Um,
Mm,
and I say masked it because I was only ever okay if I was following like a strict meal plan given to me by someone else. Like, I never trusted myself to even choose what I was going to put in my body. So I would, let's see, I hired my first coach when I was around 18, my freshman year of college. I had put myself through a bodybuilding show my senior year of high school. I did it all myself. I learned
wow.
most of the stuff I learned was from like Lane Norton, which is, he's a pretty well known source. But at the time, my carb cycling was I'm going to do 100 carbs on a high day, zero on a low day, 50 on a medium day. Like it was
Man,
never,
you, those old bodybuilding forums, huh? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You like go on those and people were like, oh, go buy this fat burner and then you got to do fasted cardio. And I was doing fasted weightlifting. Um, yeah, like everything that I'm completely against now.
In
Um,
what would should be the prime years of your life, neurologically and hormonally, uh, everything.
so I would say um, I was just living off adrenaline like the entire time I was like a kid, all the way through teenage years. And I'm kind of skipping around here, but to can kind of condense it, I started dealing with chronic pain, which is how I got into the neuro stuff when I was about 9. It started as gut issues that no one could really diagnose. Lots of doctor visits, lots of missed days of school, lots of days in the nurse's office, like crying, like my stomach hurts so bad. How come no one can help me? But eventually, I don't think the stomach pain ever went away. I just started dealing with pain from all the sports I was playing. So from a very young age, like I learned to not complain if I was ever in pain. When I was pitching, I playing softball, my shoulders were giving me like the worst fit of my life. Like every single time I like pitched a softball, I just remember like the excruciating pain down my back. But I thought it was normal. Like you're an athlete, you're taught like shut up, put your head down, like you got to get it done. So a lot of times people, yeah, and people would comment on my face. They're like, you just always have this like really aggressive face, and it was because I was in so much pain. Um, Eventually, I left softball and I started track and cross country, and then it was a nightmare. I lived with shin splints. I had, stress fractures in my ankles. I had my hip flexors hurt so bad I could barely walk throughout the school day. And, of course, I worked with the athletic trainer then. And I will say, like, I had coaches that tried to give me stuff to help, but there was something missing the entire time. It was like, man, like I have all this pain, but, nothing's really helping. Like
And
all
every
the
athlete out there
stretches.
that is listening can relate to getting back into your craft, into your sport helps you just mask it. I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing. I'm going to focus on my sport. I'm going to focus on the game versus all this pain that's going through my body. And you're trained to do that from your coaches. But was there a breaking point? Was there a point at which, okay, now my health and wellness became my focus instead of
It,
just performance?
um, I don't think I ever
You
hit
competed
that.
again, right?
Yeah. So, when I finally left, honestly, I left track because I knew I wasn't a good runner and I knew I was strong. I remember like being in the weightlifting room and my coach putting like 185 on a squat bar and I could rep it no problem. And I was 15 years
Wow.
old. Like that's not normal.
No,
And I
that's
was like,
amazing.
why? Yeah, you go, why am I wasting my time putting all this effort into this performance that I'm not good at? So
Hmm.
I stayed on the track team one more season and then I decided I just wanted to weightlift. So I started doing my own thing. Um, and that's when I got really into the performance aspect of it. But I was just taught lift heavy, never
Wow.
listen to your body, like lift heavier, keep going. I followed a lot of like
What is
Dana Lynn
biofeedback,
Bailey.
right?
Yeah, no, that didn't exist for me. If my muscles were so sore I couldn't walk, I did a good job. So
And this isn't some,
I
70s classic bodybuilder. This is like people from your high school in the modern 2010s to, or 2000s telling you this.
and oh, I mean I had, and I'm not one of those people to like expose coaches, but I had coaches like tell me that I was, like a piece of shit. I was never going to amount to anything, that I had fat girl genetics and I would have to work harder than anyone else on stage. And I just like ingrained that in my head. Like, if I can work the hardest, if I put in more reps, it was all about more is better. More, 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 more. Like my program might say, okay, you're going to do 2 sets of 15 on Romanian deadlifts. And I was like, all right, we're going to do 2 sets of 15 and then a triple drop set. And then maybe add in some walking lunges after that. Right. So the programming was partially my fault and partially I never had someone like in person with me being like, hey, girl, you went till failure. Like, just cut it there. Um, and so my breaking point didn't hit until I literally couldn't walk. I um I had been dealing with a lot of hip issues when I stepped off stage after my women's physique debut. That
Right.
was 2018. I was 20 years old. And I remember I went in to do cardio. And let me tell you, my prep was a nightmare. Like, I understood what it took to be a women's physique competitor, but I was having blood sugar drops so severe I would pass out and bust my head open, like on the gym floor.
Wow.
But what was I instructed to do? To shut up and keep going. So I would like chug some BCAAs, put some gum in my mouth, and then I'd go get on the bike and keep doing my hit.
Hmm.
Because that's bodybuilding. I mean, when you're down to the wire and you're not lean enough and your coach is like, do you want to win? You're like, I'll do whatever it takes.
Was there something you learned, or someone that may have tipped you off to start to learn about some of the maybe the non-typical training or restorative exercises that you're now more involved with?
um, I'm trying to think of who would have started it. When I met my first neuro trainer, and he's known as the bod mechanic, um, and he works with a lot of bodybuilders. I walked in for a session and I had finally gotten myself where I could walk again, but I had severe pain head to toe. Like, he asked me, the first thing he asked me was like, have you already trained today? And I said, man, I haven't trained in 8 months. And he was like,
I see what we're dealing with here.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And um it was crazy. He was like, okay, cool. Like, a very like personable, energetic person. And it was, he asked me to do a squat and I looked at him and I think he like felt the fear coming off of me. And I was just like, no, no, my PTs told me I can't squat because my knees are bad and my hips are internally rotated the wrong way and my ankles are the wrong. Like, I have been told so many different things as to why my body was hurting that I was like so scared to even like exist in this world.
Mm.
And so he told me to squat. I freaked out. I was like, no way. And he had me do like an eye reset drill, which I do with people all the time now, where I basically just like covered my eyes for like a minute until all the little white specks went away. And then he was like, okay, now do a squat. And I did a squat all the way down ass to grass. Like, there was still pain there, but it was like, what did you just do? Like, that's crazy. Um,
I hope
I-
who the listeners can understand the significance of that, being outside of the gym, with dealing with intense pain for 8 months and a 1 minute exercise. That you would have
1 minute,
thought that
yeah,
was
one
like
minute
some sort of,
exercise got me to,
it was like an exorcism done at a church, where they place the hand on the woman's forehead and she's healed immediately. You've been like, this is some weird stuff, where do I put my tithe in the jar, brother?
and like, it was, it was crazy. So I left, and then he had me lay on the floor, and he starts putting kinesio tape on my stomach. He's like, so you have a history of IBS and a history of this, and all right, we're gonna tape here, and we're gonna tape here. And while he was checking the tapes, he was checking my range of motion. So I also had frozen shoulder syndrome, thoracic outlet syndrome. Anyone who bodybuilds will probably have heard of those. Um, but yeah, I hadn't been able to lift my arms above my head in, I don't know, 6 months. So, of course, he lays me on the ground. This is where my arms can really be. And he moves the tape up to the left, like on my stomach. And all of a sudden, my arm went from here to here.
Ooh,
And I was like,
was it painful? That sounds painful. No? Huh.
it was crazy because I think I probably could have moved my arm, but I was so afraid of the pain.
Mm.
Because the best way to explain it, my 12th rib cage kept floating up and then like compressing these nerves up here.
Hmm.
So my nervous system was like constantly like shifting things out of place because it was like trying to say like, girl, I don't feel safe. I'm trying to find some kind of balance.
Hmm.
Um, but
That's
he
kind of the connection that I think I was looking for here, is that aha moment where some people start to realize that it's more than just muscles, ligaments, tendons, and bones. your brain and the neurology, all of your neurons are fully connected with every piece. So the connection, like from your shoulder to your core, down to your hips, like it all is one perfect system. It should be it all connected. And for someone listening, they're having their aha moment right now and are going to say, wow, I really want to see, what Rachel and Nick have to like discuss in this realm, because now we've been dealing with this for years. And after that aha moment, I'm sure it was just like off to the races because you immediately saw that relief. And something too, maybe that now people aren't also realizing is how much the nutrition played into that. You've kind of touched on pieces here and there. But I remember you saying that the establishing the healthy eating habits first will probably be the most effective thing for your neurological development, because your diet's probably the most dangerous thing that you can have for your brain. So I want to kind of lead into that a little bit and start on the subject material of the low serotonin diet. You mentioned that previously, and maybe we can kind of connect back with that aha moment and what you eventually got to with the low serotonin diet, because I want to hear about it too.
Okay. So to connect some with the aha moment, I did a lot of really amazing work with bod mechanic, but we hit a point where movement wasn't solving my pain. And it was completely heartbreaking.
There you go.
Someone on the outside of and I was taking these neurology courses at this point because this man was like, you got to learn pain to understand pain. So I'm taking courses from the top neurologists in the world. I'm learning all these complex movements. I started vision training, I'm vestibular training, I'm learning nerve flossing, but I'm a mess. Like I wasn't really getting better. My pain wasn't at a point where I could honestly like even sit on a podcast and talk to you. I was just kind of making it through. So it finally hit a point where um, there's a line in one of the neuro courses, and it says, if you're not good at metabolics and breathing, you're going to be crap at neuro. And I like had to sit there and digest it. And I was like, yep, yep. So, with that being said, now all I've really been learning is more of the metabolic standpoint of, okay, so we've established we're not just muscles and tendons and ligaments. We're all controlled by this awesome little device called our brains. But if we are specifically targeting the brain and attacking these neurons and they are not unwiring from the pain, or it's not even like getting to the brain to try to activate that neuron, we got to look at food. And if you're having pain symptoms, I'll give myself as an example, but I have clients like me. Right now, my pain's on the right side of my body and like in my low back. Earlier today, it was my left foot and my jaw. A couple hours ago, it was my shoulders. So when you're having pain that's moving around all throughout the day, metabolics all the way, because your body's literally telling you like, I'm just going to keep throwing at places because my brain doesn't understand what's going on.
And each of those places isn't individually the problem. It's a systemic issue.
Systemic completely. Because, and that's not to say that I don't have like lingering pain that's always kind of there. Like my pelvis has always been kind of like a trouble area for me, but like that's with a lot of women. And we can even go down the rabbit hole of the emotions within that. But that's also where all your reproductive organs are. So you have to start looking at even your hormone profile. But to kind of go down in the direction of metabolics, when I stopped working with bod mechanic, I ended up seeking out other Z health trainers because I knew that I needed metabolic health, but I didn't understand what my diet needed to be. I had tried keto, I had tried the autoimmune protocol, I had tried carnivore, I had tried, traditional bodybuilding. I couldn't digest food anymore. Like I needed to eat, but everything I eat made me sick. I was literally throwing up, or I couldn't go to the bathroom, or if I ate something, then I would get even more nerve pain everywhere. And it was just, I need to eat food, but why am I getting worse from food? So that's how I stumbled upon, and I do have a couple of different trainers helping me now, but I stumbled upon pro-metabolic eating. And I want to preface it with, it's not a diet, it is a lifestyle. Because I think it's kind of getting thrown around there
Tongue in cheek, of
now.
course.
Yeah. Um, it's kind of getting thrown around now that people are like, oh, I eat pro-metabolic. And it's like, what does that mean? Like,
Mhm.
so
If you don't have a holistic view of your metabolic state behind just muscles and ligaments, then that probably doesn't even hit home.
yeah, people are like, okay, because we're in diet culture and fitness culture, it's ingrained in you. This idea of metabolism is simply like calories in, calories out, burning. How many calories do you burn? As you age, your metabolism is going to get worse. And all of that is not, no, it's not true. You have to start digging into this idea that foods are going to help you metabolically differently. So, and when you start looking at the profile of foods, you start learning that the things you've been told to eat to reduce inflammation are inflammatory foods. So, for example, when you're bodybuilding, how many egg whites do you eat? Like a lot, right? Because it's an easy source of
Cartons.
protein, right? But egg whites, the actual amino acid profile of it is highly inflammatory, like highly. So if you have any kind of hormone or gut issues going on and you're just putting all these egg whites in you, your system is constantly in a state of inflammation. So same with like lean chicken, because it's also pumped full of hormones. Like we're not even getting like fresh chicken anymore. The amino acid profile of it is very inflammatory. So I couldn't even eat meat for the first 2 months of doing pro metabolic. My protein sources were whole milk, collagen, beef gelatin, some raw yogurt here and there. But I couldn't even handle digesting protein. Like we put my protein at like 60 grams a day. I'm like 150 pounds because the actual metabolic process of digesting protein was too taxing on my nervous system. So
The average
what
listener
was
doesn't realize that with the average standard Western American diet, with the standard bodybuilding American diet, they're both going to wreak havoc on the digestive system. So I hope when they hear all those protein sources, they're sitting back in their chair going, what? Because they need that paradigm shift to understand what a systemic metabolic change is going to be needed.
so we're also taught um, we're taught sugar is bad, right? Like sugar is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar is not
Well, I
bad.
guess that's just what's bad right now, right?
Yeah.
Historically, salt, fat, saturated fat. I remember when food dyes were a bad thing for like 3 years when we were kids. Now they're back, no problem.
Yeah.
Remember?
Except for red dye. Apparently that one is like game over. If you have
Yeah,
any red
yeah,
dye.
yeah. They just singled that one out now. That's funny.
Like red dye means that you're gonna be like ADHD child or something. They tried to like link it to autism, and I was like, I, I don't know about all that. But going back on
Yeah, low
my
serotonin
spiel,
diet, high sugar is bad, metabolic changes.
yeah. So low serotonin diet. All right, here we go. I think papers are starting to come out that are talking about the fact that SSRIs are crap, that big pharma has like completely taken the entire realm of antidepressants and they only post the stuff that they want you to see and they're just trying to push all these SSRIs. If you're actually dealing with depression, you have too much serotonin. It's not low serotonin. And too much serotonin can also cause things like neuropathy, aka chronic nerve pain, aka having like I call IBS is actually a neurogut issue because when they tell you you have IBS, it's basically like you have all these weird digestive symptoms we don't really understand. don't eat broccoli or whatever they tell you to do. Um, so when you're actually looking at um, your gut does store like most of your serotonin. A lot of your serotonin comes from your gut. But if it constantly has too much, what's happening? You're not able to break down foods. And also, high serotonin can lead to high estrogen.
Hmm.
So I think the buzzword now is definitely like estrogen dominance when you get into like the hormone stuff. And it makes sense why everyone is estrogen dominant, because our diets are filled with seed oils and highly inflammatory proteins and a bunch of other stuff. Gluten, for one, can be very inflammatory for most people. Um, but when it comes to like a low serotonin diet, the number one thing that you can start to add in if you're having symptoms of low serotonin, meaning like brain fog, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, depression, um, gut issues, hormonal issues, is actually eating raw carrot salad. Uh,
Hmm.
or, yeah, we'll start with the raw carrot salad. So,
You
raw
just
carrot
described the whole
salad.
spectrum of patients in the chronic illness space that I'm like
Mhm.
connected with on social media. So if they could just make that one small change, you would suggest it?
That would be like, if I could drill in one tool for people, it would be raw carrot salad, hands down.
Hmm.
Um, so raw carrot salad, you grate first. You get a well washed carrot, get all those pesticides off it. You grate it down with like a cheese grater. Then you only need to do like one or two. I typically do like two a day right now, and I can even go into the weeds of when I eat it. But one raw carrot, then you do like a tablespoon of coconut oil on it. And then you do just a little bit of either white vinegar or apple cider vinegar. And then I
Interesting.
put a bunch of sea salt on it. And then you mix it up and then
Oh,
you
so
eat
this is
it.
like a nice tangy stack. Hmm.
And there's a bunch of different recipes. I like to add tomatoes and Parmesan cheese to mine because it makes it just like a good little, yeah, it's a good little snack. But the fiber from the carrot actually helps clean out the gut and get the gut to start dumping some of that high serotonin that may be causing a bunch of your issues.
Hmm. Is
And
a
you will
is a
notice
is a high serotonin diet, sorry to cut you off, is a high serotonin diet also destructive to the lining of the intestines? So it's going to make it harder to just digest the good foods anyways. So you have to like slowly build it back up.
yeah. And
Hmm.
that's even, we're even getting into the weeds of people who have like stuff like SIBO. Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to SIBO, um, and all of this stuff is could be, some people can honestly be too sick to eat raw carrot salad. I talked to
Hmm.
some of my mentors and they're like, I have people drink orange juice for a week straight because we just need to get a bunch of vitamin C and sugar to like start clearing out some of this crap going on. Um,
Like a complete antioxidant redo the whole system. Wow.
yeah.
I've heard of the same thing for people with GI problems. I'm going to interject here with a little bit of my own experience. They do a Greek yogurt reset. So they'll fast like after noon or 1 p.m. the day before. Then you wake up the following day and you're only eating plain fat-free, unflavored Greek yogurt with, if you want to add some salt or drink extra water on top of it for that entire 24 hours. And then you wake up the next day and start your new low serotonin or AIP, Mediterranean diet, whatever you want. And I tried that once in like a last ditch effort for some of my Crohn's issues and pains and symptoms. And I'm sure it had a similar type of effect that just, resetting the gut with any type of good food would do.
I think my only discrepancy with that would be, we talk about the gut, but the liver and the thyroid are involved so much in those processes. And if we
Hmm.
are Greek yogurt, like yogurt is advertised as a health food, but yogurt's actually really hard on the liver because it's hard for it to break down. And if you're dealing with gut issues, you're probably also dealing with sluggish liver issues. So it's all interconnected. It's not that that couldn't work. it would just, you'd kind of have to look at your symptoms, and we'd also have to address what's your thyroid health, which is going down a whole new rabbit hole. So like on part of course, me making all these dietary changes, I also track my temp and pulse to see my thyroid health, to see, is my, we've been taught too in the fitness industry that if you have, a low pulse, you're healthy. Nah, that is not true.
Could be
Low pulse,
hypothyroidism.
yeah, low pulse means hypothyroid, which a lot of women are, and you don't have to be overweight to have hypothyroid. Like, I think that's a misconception too. Um, if you are running off of, and we can break down the temp and pulse for a later day, but I have to constantly be checking, am I running off of adrenaline or cortisol right now? Because another thing is, it's okay. We're taught that like, oh, stress hormones bad. They're not bad. They're useful. We need them. We do need them. It's okay to have an adrenaline rush when you're doing a high intensity workout. But are you getting adrenaline rushes just like when you're waking up in the morning? Are you getting adrenaline rushes when you're trying to go to bed at night? Are you flooded with cortisol throughout the day that you're so stressed out your body can never reset? That's when we start to have to look at like a bunch of thyroid, liver, gut, all intertwined in one. So it's always this big systematic thing that we're trying to figure out. Okay, what little changes and baby steps can we keep making to get ourselves back to a homeostasis at that point?
I'm really excited to keep discussing this with you, Rachel. We've only got a couple minutes left. We're in the weeds there, right at the end, exactly where we wanted to be. This has worked out perfectly. I hope everyone listening at home has got something from this. At least, some rabbit trails to go on. It's start Google searching themselves to want to learn. Please, but also put your questions in the comments below for us if you want to learn anything more about what we've been able to, learn, accomplish with our own stories or with our own clients. Again, we only got a couple minutes left, but Rachel, I want you to plug anything for yourself here. Take a minute or two. Where can people find you?
Okay, so people can find me. You can look me up on Instagram. It's evolved underscore pain and performance is my IG handle, but I also have a website, and it's just called evolvedpainandperformance.com. I am a neuro coach. I specifically focus getting people out of chronic pain as well as athletic technical development. And whenever I say that, people go, what does that mean? That means if you're a young athlete, and let's say I've worked with a lot of softball and baseball players, so I'm going to shamelessly give a couple clients that I've been really excited about their progress with me. I had one girl, she was a pitcher. She had pretty bad shoulder pain, but we actually fixed it with a vision drill because I noticed when she was batting, even though her coach kept giving her instructions on where to swing, no matter what, her form was a little like choppy and awkward. And we actually saw that one of her eyes wasn't able to actually converge correctly. And why this matters, like bringing something into your face
Yeah, sure.
and back out, is you're having a midline stability issue. So her throwing shoulder was constantly compensating all the time for how much this left side was trying to keep her stable. So once we fixed that eye and it was able to come in, like not only was she like batting way better, but she was pitching without any pain in her shoulder again. So
Amazing.
she got better in one session and 2 weeks of homework.
That is the type of eye that a true real coach that's had those personal experiences will ultimately have. It's not the 9 to 5 plumber that's getting off work and like just wants to coach their kids team for like 30 minutes and go home and crack open a beer. You were truly invested into your client. So that's amazing to hear that you're able to help her so much.
Yeah. And with anyone that works for me, I have to show up differently for people. I do work with some elderly people who have a lot of pain issues, and their rehab process is going to be completely different than a 15-year-old I work with. as well
Definitely.
as, the 30-year-old that's trying to get back to bodybuilding or something like that, right? So
Mhm.
I
Who
just
doesn't who
always
doesn't
try.
even know that this is a thing or a world, and now might be going, oh, I guess this could be an injury or something systemic for
Well,
years, and could be the key that's been missing all this time.
and it's funny. I think like at my root, I was like, oh, I want to help people get out of pain. And now I'm like, I just want to teach people that they can move in different ways and have fun. Like most adults don't work out because we think that we have to go to the gym and just do 3 sets of 12 on a lat pull down. I'm like, do you want to just like throw a baseball? Do you know how excited adults get when they learn how to throw a ball for the first time because they were like petrified because they had all these vision issues? Like, I mean, I got a lady off her walker because her vertigo was so bad, and we had to do a lot of inner ear focus work. And now she doesn't have to use her walker when she's going to her grandkids' games. It's You start to really appreciate um, how amazing and resilient our bodies are when you have the right tools.
I think that can
So,
resonate with everybody listening. And if I could give one person, a take home from my point of view, other than your raw carrot salad, which I'm sure going to try that bad boy. That sounds good. But if I had to give like a one take home, it would be that quality of life right there. You can take control back. Um, I think that actually brings us to the point of the whole podcast, and maybe a good ending note.
yeah.
Is that the point of this podcast is to take back power over your mind, so you can ultimately take power back over your health and ultimately life. And that's what we're all kind of trying to do together. And when someone doesn't realize that they can just basically take leaps and bounds on their quality of life by learning these little things, I think their whole perspective changes. It's a paradigm shift that I think everyone should have in the chronic illness space. You might not be able to jump out of planes and be a fighter pilot, but your quality of life doesn't have to stay where it is. You can do something about it. And that would be my take home for someone at the end of the episode. Do you have anything else you want to say, Rachel? Just catch him next time.
Other than, you know, I think we need to shift. This new paradigm shift is a lot of just reiterating what you said, moving out of the learned response of helplessness and moving into the response of what can I do today to help myself? Because I hate to be the person that says this, but you can keep hiring all these trainers and healers and coaches, but if you are not accepting the work that you personally have to do, and it's not going to look like anyone else's story, and you just have to take that leap and go, I am going to heal me and I can, and I got this no matter where you are, because there's always hope.
Hell
So
yeah. That kind of goes in with our next episode. We're going to get into the business side of spiritual wellness. That's going to start to get real good real quick. So make sure you tune in. Thank you,
yes.
Rachel. I'll see you next
Thank
time.
you. See you next time.